I think maybe one of the problems that is challenging men like Jordan B. Peterson and his acolytes these days is not so much who women are going to marry up with or mate up with, but that more and more women are choosing not to marry and not to mate at all because they realise that these situations and these structures for them are actually not all that liberating. Not currently in the world that we live in, where when women do marry, they end up doing the bulk of the domestic workload. They end up doing significant hours of unpaid work. If children enter the picture, then women's workload astronomically increases while men's workload decreases. It's actually not advantageous at all for women to choose to live with men in romantic partnerships.
Gentlemen, on today's episode, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be breaking down this interview with Clementine Ford. Now, Clementine Ford is this woman right here. I'm going to pause the video. This is her right here, gentlemen. And just to give you a summary of who this individual is, guys, is she's a womanist writer, okay? She's written novels on, I would call them just misandry novels, essentially, guys. But you know what? We're in 2022 now. Apparently, they're just books of enlightenment. But, you know, this woman does not like men, guys. And I can say that with absolute confidence because if you Google image this woman's tweets, specifically the deleted ones, guys, you can tell, you know, so much about this individual. But on today's episode, guys, shout out to Mediocre Tutorials and Reviews who also covered this woman. We're going to be breaking down this interview and just, you know, explaining why she's talking so much crap. Now, guys, we're going to begin with this point right here before we continue on with the others. So, guys, make sure you leave your thoughts and your comments as we go through this garbage. Let's get on with it.
Or mate up with, but that more and more women are choosing not to marry and not to mate at all because they realise that these situations and these structures for them are actually not all that liberating.
Do you guys know what? It's not that women are mating less, okay? We all know, gentlemen, that hookup culture, specifically for girls, is alive and well. But let me tell you something, guys. She does have a little bit of a point here, okay? And that point is that women are not having kids as much. Now, the thing is, guys, that's not a consequence of choice. That's not all these women going, yeah, let's stand up to these men. Let's have less children. No, it's because all of these girls out here are strong, independent ladies, guys, and they're pushing off families until they go into their 30s and 40s, and they're coming to the realization that, oh, you know, my eggs don't last that long. I can't have a family when I go into my 30s and 40s. So that's, you see, hookup culture is alive and well, gentlemen. A round of applause to all the empowered ladies out there. I'm sure, you know, the guys who are out there having fun as well, the top percentage of dudes, they thank you very much for your accomplishments as well. But, you know, we're painting it a little bit sideways, don't you think?
Not currently in the world that we live in, where when women do marry, they end up doing the bulk of the domestic workload. They end up doing significant hours of unpaid work.
Yeah, no kidding. Guys, let me paint a picture for you, okay? If we as men, we go out here, we marry these women, we're paying the bills, okay? And, you know, we're paying for the roof over their head, we're paying for the kid or whatever, okay? Am I supposed to then be paying my wife for her labor inside the house? No. She's getting a roof over her head as a result of my work. Okay, like what? So you want us to pay the bills for you. You want us to pay the mortgage, pay for the kid. Hell, in these days, guys, a lot of men are paying for kids that aren't theirs. Let's look at paternity fraud or, you know, just single mothers in general out here. And you expect me to pay you because you're doing domestic duties? My guy, the reason why you're able to do domestic duties and not go out here and be in the workforce is because men are providing for you.
If children enter the picture, then women's workload astronomically increases while men's workload decreases.
Yeah, your work goes up because there's a kid in the house now. Okay, and a man's workload, I would argue that it doesn't decrease. Maybe it decreases around home because he's got another mouth to feed. But that's just such a ridiculous thing to say, guys. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, the woman's workload goes up with a kid when she has a kid. Yeah, no kidding, right? Of course. If the dude's out here working, okay, and he's providing for you and you have a kid, yeah, your domestic duties are going to go up. Does that mean I've got to start paying you a minimum wage now to raise your own kid? Like, And to say that the dudes aren't contributing is really disgusting, guys. We see this argument of like deadbeat fathers all the time, guys. Let me tell you something. There are dudes out there who are scumbags, right? And they'll leave their kids. But what I see, gentlemen, is I see a lot of fathers out here. They love their kids, and you know what? Their kids are taken away from them. Okay, they can't see their kids. Their kids are dangled in front of them, and the single mothers go, "Hey, you got to pay this and this, or else you don't get to see your kid this weekend." That's what I see a lot of. And I'm not defending the dudes who walk away from their kids. I think that, guys, we have a responsibility to look after our kids, right? If it's your kid, you do the best to look after that life that you brought into the world. I'm not going to say that like there are dudes out here who aren't being scumbags like that, but I see a lot of men who truly do love their kids, and we got all these girls out here encouraged to be strong, independent women, and as a result, these guys don't even get to see their kids anymore.
It's actually not advantageous at all for women to choose to live with men in romantic partnerships.
Oh, she's got a point there, guys, because you know what you can do now? You can live with a man for a bit, you can then leave him, and under common law marriage, you can take his crap anyway. So I'll give her a point there for that one.
The fact that we still do it indicates to me that there's not a lot that Jordan really needs to be concerned about. This is just about maintaining men's primacy and maintaining men's position at the top of the pile. I think it seems more that what is concerning him is that men no longer have power over women.
So you would say, you would disagree with this quote then? I've watched women go through their professional careers. It's a rare woman who at the age of 30 doesn't consider having a child her primary desire. And the ones that don't, there's generally something not quite right in the way that they're constituted or looking at the world.
That sounds to me like quack psychology that is better placed in the 19th century than in the 21st century, and certainly not the kind of science that should be asserted based on a handful of observations.
Well, he says there are plenty who will just simply not admit to having this as their primary desire.
Oh, that's interesting. So he's claiming to be a mind reader.
Yes.
Also a form of quack science.
Okay, I've got to pause it here, gentlemen, all right? There are a lot of things that, I disagree with Jordan Peterson on. I think that he makes a lot of fantastic points, but let me just say this, okay? The guy practiced as a clinical psychologist, all right? There are so many instances right now, gentlemen, of girls who get to 40 years of age, and they cry, guys. They get upset, they lose their minds because they're like, you know what, damn it, I should have had a family, right? Why did I waste my time going out here and pursuing a career? And a lot of these girls are coming to that realization now. If you don't want to have kids as a girl, that's cool. No, nobody really cares. You know what I mean? It's like these girls like, I feel so pressured to have a family. No, guys, like nobody cares really if you have a kid. It's like, hey, you go out there, you live your life and stuff like that. Where the issue really comes in is these girls who get to 30 and 40 years of age and they're like, oh crap, man, I gotta have a family. So what do, guys? They go out there, they get that guy that they've been ignoring their entire life, that man that they've been treating like crap throughout their 20s. That man has been, working on his career, grinding. He's got a bit of money, and she uses him. Okay, and, that's how a lot of the times, guys, notwithstanding the Chads and Tyrones, we end up with a lot of single mothers. Because these girls are going out here, they realize that they run out of time, so they've got to rush out being a mother and getting married. They do those things, they divorce the guy, and they take him for a lot of his crap. And that's like the plan right there. You know what I mean, guys? It's like we can just shove off family, and then at the end just hand it in like it's late homework, right? You guys know what I'm talking about here, guys. Where like there's those people, and maybe that's you. Lord knows it's been me sometimes, right, guys? Where back in the day in school, you'd hand in homework last minute because you just you couldn't be bothered, or you were doing other stuff that was more fun. That's literally these girls with families. You know what I mean? They're like, oh crap, the due date's coming. It's time to get a dude to pay for my life now.
That certainly has not been proven to have any sort of basis in reality. I mean, it's convenient, I'm sure, for Jordan B. Peterson to decide that he knows better than the women he's speaking to what they truly feel. But it's certainly not a revolutionary position for a man to take. It's certainly not something that men throughout history have not been guilty of doing. As a woman, I certainly know that I belong to a class of people whose desires and ideas and mentality about the world are consistently disclaimed by men around me, that my actual mentality or my actual emotions about things I'm not thought to be in control of them, that I need a man to define those experiences for me. And Jordan B. Peterson clearly feels able to do that, despite the fact that I'm not really sure he knows all that many women based on what he said.
He says,
I love that line of argument, guys. Like, that part just right at the end, right? It's like whenever you disagree with these girls, or you say like, hey, you know, maybe a lot of these girls, they regret not having a family, or if you just disagree with them in any way, guys, or, you know, and this guy, like, I get it, guys, Jordan B. Peterson, he gets a lot of things wrong, but at the end of the day, the guy was a clinical psychologist, okay? And he's not a stupid guy. All right, for him to go out here and say, look, I've seen a lot of women who get to their 40s and 30s and they regret not having a family. I believe the guy, you know, gentlemen, and I've seen it quite a lot where these girls, you know, they break down in tears, man. They start to realize that the time's running up and, you know, everything is, their world is crumbling down around them because they're like, oh crap, I have to have a family. But I just want to point out that bit right at the end, guys, where what she said is, you know, Jordan B. Peterson doesn't know a lot of women. This is kind of the line of argument that you'll get from a lot of these modern ladies, guys, where, like, if you disagree with them, it must be like, oh, you know, you can't get women, or, like, you've obviously never been laid in your life, or you never talk to girls, or, you know, you don't go outside, or you're short, or you're fat. It's just like this shaming stuff, guys, where it's like, you disagree with me on a point, well, I'm going to attack something about you, right? And typically that has to do with, like, you know, you can't get girls. And it's just so grossly inaccurate, guys. Like, that's what they say when they have no point to make. You know, they're like, oh, we've all heard it before, guys, on TikTok, right? Like, girls will say you've got a small package, you're short, you know, you can't get laid, all this kind of stuff, rather than addressing your actual points.
Is that people say there aren't enough women in top jobs, you know, in leadership positions. And he says that's the wrong question. That's the wrong question to be asking. We should be asking, why would anyone, mostly men, want these jobs at all? Because they're not good jobs. They're stressful, and you work overtime, and, well, you get paid well. But while women leave law firms at around the age of 30, when they're all wanting kids, it's actually they're smarter because they're doing that, because they know that this is not a good job to be in. So really, women have it better off because they're the ones who are smart enough to know to leave these high-paying but very stressful jobs. And it's men who are dumb and decide to stay in them.
Yeah, it sounds like a convenient way to excuse men continuing to stay in the top echelons of society. I mean, I'd be interested to know, he's written a book called 12 Rules for Life, in which he argues that it's actually not very smart to want to vie for these top positions. I know he certainly has an enormous following of young white men around the world. I'd be interested to know if...
I have to pause it there, guys. We're going to address this point in a second. But just notice how these people who make, you know, they don't like being judged on certain characteristics. For example, race, ethnicity, gender, sexual preference, or whatever. They are the first people to bring up these things. Nobody mentioned race in this video at all. I can't even talk about this because of YouTube, guys, but, like, I just want you to notice how she's trying to, like, she just throws that in there. Like, nobody even, this is not even part of the discussion, you know what I mean?
If in their reading of this book and their embrace of his philosophies, they've also decided to stop vying for the top positions in the top industries, or if they consider that to be not quite part of the 12 rules, but a rule of which they can use to excuse or to dismiss the fact that they have privilege in those positions. Oh, well, of course, I am a partner in a law firm, but, you know, it's not a very smart thing to be. I tell you what, it is certainly very smart to, in the kind of world that we live in, to be able to control your own economic future. And it is not smart as a woman, as he seems to claim. It is not the smartest thing to remove yourself from industry and to remove yourself from economic independence and rely on a man to take care of you.
That wasn't the point, okay? The point wasn't to remove yourself from economic independence. The point was that those jobs are very, very difficult and they're very, very stressful. They take long hours. They take lots of hard work and dedication, guys. Like, I don't know if you gentlemen know this, but if you go to law school, for example, I'm pretty sure law has like one of the highest failure rates outside of university. Right there, there's just such an oversurplus of lawyers coming out of these schools and stuff like that, where basically, guys, it's like even after you graduate, you have such a slim chance of being able to make it work for yourself. Now, obviously, that depends on geographical location, but these jobs are not easy, man. So for her to sit here and say like, oh, men are just excusing the fact that they have privilege and that they're going out to work in these positions, it's like, I'm sorry, how do you excuse yourself into working a ridiculous amount of hours per week in a highly stressful position? You know what I mean? And these girls who are leaving these law firms, by the way, as they go into their 30s, shocker, right around the time they realize they want to have families, is, you know, it's just super weird to me that she would argue along these lines, because women are voluntarily choosing to leave, okay? Voluntarily. You know, the argument is not that, oh, you should give up your economic independence and, you know, you should just fully rely on a man. Like, no. What the point is that these super high paying jobs, these, you know, elite tier jobs, I guess you could call them, lawyer, doctor, you know, spinal surgeon, all that kind of crap, they're very, very difficult. Okay? And this just like flew right over her head, man. And I'd also like to add, I'm not doing these stupid edits, by the way. This is actually on the video. I haven't put these in.
The divorce rates alone show that to be the case. The fact that women consistently retire with far less retirement funds than men do show that to be the case. And, you know, in Australia, where I'm from, the fastest growing group of homeless people in the country are women over the age of 65. It doesn't seem to me to be.
Yeah, it's almost like they're relying on men and not actually getting their life together. You know what I mean? It's like these women use dudes as meal tickets, guys. Like, I'm going to go back there for a second, okay? These girls who are retiring with very little funds, let me just paint a picture for you guys. And I'm going to really broadly generalize here. So before we get the dudes in the comments saying, Taylor's generalizing, yes, I am, okay? A lot of these girls, what they do, guys, is they're in their 20s. Okay, you know, they're attractive, so they go out, they have their fun, they live the party lifestyle while they're working, you know, their coffee barista job or whatever, you know, not earning a great amount of money, but enough to get by. Maybe they live with their parents still until they're like mid-20s, or maybe they move out and they like live in a shared house or something like that with some other friends. These girls continue to work these jobs, these like low-paying entry-level jobs, and then they get into their 30s and they're like, or they, you know, they're going into it and they're like, oh crap, man, I gotta have a family, I gotta have things lined up. So then they get with a dude, right? By this point, they still haven't, you know, progressed necessarily in their field super far, or whatever, or they're doing entry-level jobs, or maybe they're studying, so they're going into debt, right? Like, a lot of these girls, they'll work like a part-time job, and they'll go into debt at university, or hell, they'll just go into debt at university and take money from the government in order to live. That's certainly possible where I'm from, guys. And what happens is, of course, you have no savings because you're deferring everything important in your life the entire way along. You know, you're not advancing in your career. You're leaving commitment until very late in your life. Of course, you're going to be the demographic that, you know, if your man's no longer with you, you know, the homelessness in your demographic is going to rise because you have nothing. You know, you haven't built your life and you haven't focused on relationships, so where does that leave you? And it's not the men's fault. It certainly isn't the men's fault. If you're retiring without money, I don't see how that's dude's fault. You know, they'll always say, guys, like, oh, we have it so hard in these fields. It's like, my guy, there are scholarships, more scholarships that exist in these positions. Hell, these positions will hire you, you know, more, they will be more likely to hire you because you're a woman. Because it's good business practice. It's all about that equality nowadays, guys. You think that these STEM field jobs are like, you wouldn't take a woman who was equally qualified over a dude? It's like, absolutely not, guys. They need to be fulfilling these equality quotas nowadays.
Be all that smart, actually, to put ourselves in positions where we are reliant on anyone else, but least of all, a man, to take care of us.
So you're saying there's more to these rules than just the one sentence?
I'm saying that
look at that, man. Just look at the you know, just what an unpleasant way to have a conversation, right? It's just like you're so snarky the entire time. You're sitting there, you're being condescending, right? It's just terrible, man.
I think life is a little bit more complicated than Jordan B. Peterson has decided he's going to profit out of.
Okay. Oh, let's hear that.
pretending it is.
And so her entire point there that she wrapped off with there, gentlemen, is that, none of these arguments really apply. None of the arguments, for example, that I said really apply. It's all about a profit, guys, ridiculous. But let's go back because there's a few more points that we skipped over because we went towards the end of the video. So let's take a little bit of a look.
And more to the point, I accept the reality of the patriarchy. For me, it's not an issue of belief or not. It's understanding that it's real.
And do you think that the patriarchy is oppressive?
Absolutely, oppressive to everybody. More superficially beneficial than not to men, but still acts in a way that oppresses them.
I don't know if you've thought about this, though. How can the patriarchy be oppressive to women when it was a man who invented the tampon?
Well, you've undone my entire worldview now.
I read it here, that's it.
It's interesting. Firstly, it assumes that women or people who bled prior to the invention of the tampon had absolutely no way of dealing with their menstrual cycles.
Are we calling, women, are we referring to them as people who bled? I don't know about you guys, but that seems incredibly, like some dangerous territory right there. I don't know, that seems pretty offensive to me. A couple of points I want to make before we continue, gentlemen, is a few things. This video that we're watching right now, it has on the dot basically 250,000 views. It has only 1.6 thousand likes on it, and would you believe it, guys? The comments are turned off. Classic. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, I haven't done my due diligence, right? 1.6 thousand likes for a video that has a 250,000 views, and the comments are turned off, guys. You know what I mean? And also, one more thing to mention as well is, don't quote me on this, guys, but I believe this woman is a single mother, as far as I know. But maybe someone in the comments can let us know, but I'm fairly certain that this woman is a single mother. So, just something to consider as well, just going the direction that we have been in this video, guys. I'm oppressed, I'm a victim, things are so difficult for women, I don't like men, etc.
And of course, we have all of human history to disprove that theory and the fact that we're still standing here today.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that a man invented the tampon, a man invented the pad, a man invented the birth control pill, and these are all things that only really, well, not birth control pill, but the other two only really help women. So those are men trying to help women. How are they also part of the oppressing of women if they're helping them?
Just look at the smirking that she's doing, man. Just look at this crap, right? It's unreal.
They also part of the oppressing of
crazy.
women if they're helping them.
Well, the thing is that not every single man is an active, conscious agent of the patriarchy. Of course, we know that there are many men out there who support the rights of women and bleeding people in their lives to achieve.
That's a little bit sus right there, don't you guys think? That could be construed as a little bit offensive. I don't know, though. As a man, I'm not really allowed to be offended, guys. So, I don't know. Maybe like one of the 6 women who watched the channel, you could let us know if that offends you guys, because certainly seems a little bit out of place for me.
Freedom and dignity and movement throughout the world. So it doesn't surprise me that there would be some men who have women in their lives who would be invested in making those lives easier for women. But I just want to go back to this point that actually people who bleed have been managing their menstrual cycles since...
Again, like what? Is she doing this like as a joke or no? Like she just referred to women as that. Guys, like imagine if every time I made a video, right, and rather than saying like women or girls or ladies or whatever word I feel like using at a given time, right? Imagine instead of using those words, I used the words that she just used right there. Like that has to be a joke, right?
It's the dawn of humanity. It's not so much that a man invented the sanitary pad or invented the tampon. It's that men historically have had access to spaces and to education and to industry that allows them to create certain versions of things that have already been used for thousands and thousands of years. Women have invented things too, you know.
Like?
Like the internet.
The problem is, though, is that if we all accept that we there is an oppressive patriarchy, then we are now telling young men that you are a beneficiary of this patriarchy, and it's making them feel bad. And it's, and they're not feeling good.
Look at that, right? Look at the response that this just got from the woman, okay? So this woman on the left here, who's behind my character at the moment, she made the point that, look, if you say that the patriarchy exists, it's oppressive, and all men, like, collectively belong to this by default, it makes young men feel not particularly good, and I'm kind of paraphrasing right there. And just watch her reaction to this, right, about young men not feeling happy. Just watch her face, guys.
Patriarchy, and it's making them feel bad. And it's, and they're not feeling good. And
like, bro, what's so funny about that? You know what I mean? Like, guys, I watch some of these videos, right? And we watch the TikToks and whatever else on this channel, okay? And I don't understand, like, what's funny. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't heard a joke. I haven't seen anything that's particularly funny. Guys, I actually don't really think it's funny when people are upset. Like, I know that might be a shocker to some people watching the channel, guys, but, like, I don't find it pleasant when, I really don't, guys. Like, yeah, I think that, things happen. If you make stupid decisions, you get stupid consequences, and I have no sympathy. But, it's not really to laugh at someone's pain, especially, guys, when it's not self-inflicted. I think that's the main difference, right? Is like, yeah, look, if someone does something stupid and they bear the consequences, it can be funny. But we're talking about young men here who have nothing to do with this at all. And we're just having a smirk because, like, they're in pain and like, I don't understand that, man. Like, this is not the result. Like, it would be different, for example, if young men or men of age, older men, for example, were out here doing stupid stuff, and then they got what they deserved. I could understand a bit of a laugh about that. But we're talking about young men here who have no real say in this kind of crap, who are just essentially being attacked over this. And this woman's response is to laugh and smirk at that. Like, what even is that?
And they don't want to go to university, and this is a real issue because, we need men to be leading the way.
Do we?
Apparently, yes. Yes, because if the numbers of men in social sciences decreases, as they're decreasing every year, not in STEM subjects, but social sciences, then they're no longer going to be going to the top of these industries. And then, in that case, where are women going to find people to marry?
That's guys, this woman is like, I'm going to move my character so you can see. Okay, so this woman right here, as you can see, she's got like a collection of books. I believe these are Jordan Peterson's, right? Where she's trying to use arguments that he would have against Clementine Ford on the right. I just like to point this out, okay? People are not... It's not the argument that, young men need to feel well so that they can assume, like, go out here and just dominate everybody in leadership positions. It's more just so that dudes can function in society, right? If you have a young generation of men and you're telling them to, you're telling them that they're constantly a part of the problem, that they should be just kind and respectful no matter what, which, by the way, is bullcrap, guys. People have to earn respect, okay? And all this kind of stuff where you're basically just pushing down masculinity. You're treating young dudes as if they're an issue, even though they haven't even done anything, right? That's not, the argument is not that, oh, well, how are we going to have men lead society now? It's more like, how are we going to have young men lead themselves, Like, how are dudes going to go out here into the world and be okay with themselves and confident in their decisions if all they've been told are that your decisions are inherently oppressive, your decisions are inherently, something that is against other people, against women specifically, right? It's not like, oh yeah, young dudes have to feel good about themselves so they can go out here and dominate like that. Look, that's just really a weird way of arguing it, in my opinion, guys. It's more so that young dudes can, at the very least, function. And if they want to lead their own lives, their own communities, their jobs, go for it, right?
And mate with, because women want to mate up, men mate across and down. So if we don't have these men staying at the top, how are the women going to mate up?
Well, I think maybe one of the problems that is challenging men like Jordan B. Peterson and his acolytes these days is not so much who women are going to marry up with or mate up with, but that more and more women are choosing not to marry and not to mate at all because they realize that these situations and these structures for them are actually not all that liberating.
And you know what, guys? We're going to be leaving today's episode there. We're actually going to address that last point right there. Apparently, these structures are not beneficial to women. They are beneficial to women. In fact, a lot of men lose their houses, they lose their children, they lose their assets, they lose their sanity and masculinity to being dragged through the divorce courts. But you know what, guys? Like, I would say this woman right here is trying to make the case that these institutions, such as marriage, are not things that benefit women. They very much are, guys. Gentlemen, we're going to be leaving today's episode here. A bit of a rant. Let us know what you think in the comments, gentlemen. And as always, guys, I'll see you boys in the next one. Take care.